finishers and factions catching action.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finishers and Factions Does SmackDown. This week we are coming from the All-State Arena in Chicago. We've got one hell of an episode for you this week, ladies and gentlemen. I can promise you that. So, to start off with, we are informed that Chicago has held 3 WrestleManias, and those 3 WrestleManias were WrestleMania 2, which was involved along with WrestleMania 13 and WrestleMania 22. WrestleMania 22, of course, was the one where John Cena had the Al Capone entry, and we got to see our first glimpse of the Second City Saint hanging off the side of one of his cars. A little bit of a trip back into WrestleMania history for you. So, to start off this week's episode, we began with a recap of last week's contract signing between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk. And we find out a little bit about the favour that he asked for and the favour that he feels he was owed. At this point, Mr. Punk's music hits and Chicago explodes. Like I said, Second City Saint, Mr. CM Punk, is a Chicago local, and he comes out and he says a whole heap of things. We starts off by him saying that he knew the TV audiences overseas were mental and were told that they were the best, but for him, nothing beats the hometown of Chicago. And at this point, we get to see cameraman Punk as he takes the camera off Rico at ringside and shows us his perspective of what he's seeing in the ring. And that is literally just Chicago going absolutely mental. He starts off by saying, again, that he shouldn't really listen to outside voices. After all, he's not supposed to be here. Goes on to kind of tell us a little bit more about the life of CM Punk, I suppose. Starting off with the fact that he was born with his cord around his neck, and they brought him back to life in the maternity suite there and then, and he just wants to thank the entire hometown arena and everyone in Chicago for the support that he's had over the time. Now, normally CM Punk says that he goes into each arena each day he gets up and he's looking to make new fans. He wants to introduce more people to CM Punk, but this time he's not really doing that. He's here to appreciate the guys that are there and then, and he starts giving us a little imitation of The Rock out here tapping his arm, goosebumps. Like, Jesus, man, this is nuts. But we get there, and he gets to a point where he shouldn't be here, but he's earned everything that he's got. He was told that when he came through, and like I said, he was Al Capone dressed on John Cena's WrestleMania entrance, that was the furthest he'd get. But for him, getting to the main event of WrestleMania means the hard work starts now. And he's got a date with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and he's going to give one of them a whooping and one of them a beating. And we get a little bit more of an insight to him. He says that he's thankful to his wife April, who we know as AJ Lee, and we get quite a few AJ Lee chants running around. And then we even get one for his puppy Larry the dog. And then, as normal, he reminds us that without Chicago, there is no CM Punk, which is always an interesting one. He is very much all about the people for him and the people that have helped him get to where he is these days. And he's just trying to kind of show us how thankful he is. We never thought as fans that when he left the first time, we'd ever see CM Punk in a professional wrestling ring again. Because he was very much against the idea. And to be fair, I think a lot of people were very much against the idea of him being in a pro wrestling ring again. But I tell you something, I am so happy that he is back, and I for one, cannot wait to see this main event at WrestleMania. He's joined in the ring at this point by a gentleman we know as the Wise Man. Now, the Wise Man was CM Punk's best friend, still is CM Punk's best friend within the wrestling industry. And we get that classic line that every time I hear it personally makes me feel amazing. And it's that, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. And for me, that makes everything that's about to happen so much better. I am definitely a massive Paul Heyman guy. I'd love to be a Paul Heyman guy. If I ever had the ability to get to WWE, working with Paul Heyman would be the ultimate goal. But Paul Heyman comes out and he basically says that he's really sorry he's late, and he means no disrespect to Chicago or to CM Punk. But tonight is not what about Chicago can do for Paul Heyman. It's about what Paul Heyman can do for Chicago. And basically says that, CM Punk belongs in the main event of WrestleMania. Between the two of them, they recap a history of his return, how he saved the bloodline at War Games. But Paul Heyman has one more favour to ask Punk, and he asks he asks Paul Heyman what Paul Heyman owes him anyway. Punk's like, favours are stacking up here. But as you already owe me one, like, I don't mind giving you a second one, but we're going to have to see what this is. When CM Punk asks if Roman Reigns is there, and Paul Heyman says he's in a training camp for WrestleMania, Punk says, you know what, I'll let you know what the favour is when the tribal chief shows up. And what a start to the show this was. It was, even just talking about it now, I've got the same sort of goosebumps I had watching it, and it was fantastic to watch. So, as far as I'm concerned with that one, if the opening part of this show is anything to go by, what an opening start, I'll tell you. We then get a little VT about a man that has been spoken about an awful lot. He is a former AEW superstar. He is one half of a very distinguished tag team. And today he is making his WWE debut. And of course, I am talking about none other than Rey Fenix. So we get a little bit of a Rey Fenix debut VT. Just kind of showing us who Rey Fenix is, and basically telling us that we're getting his SmackDown debut now. And Rey Fenix makes his WWE SmackDown debut against one half of the NXT Tag Team Champions at Nathan Frazer. Now, when I looked at this originally, I was sat here going, this is actually going to be a really poor mismatch in quality. I've seen video stuff of Rey Fenix on YouTube. I've not seen him wrestle. I've not watched whole matches. I've just seen clips, and I've not really seen him wrestle anyone kind of worth talking about at this point. Yes, I know he's an AEW, but apart from the odd sort of ex-WWE superstar and Tony Storm, I couldn't really tell you much about All Elite Wrestling. But as we go into this match, I didn't think it was going to be the match it was. Nathan Frazer gave him one hell of a match. I've got a few little notes here. The fan in me got to this match more than the podcaster. But I did my best for you guys, and that is the best I could have done. So we had Rey Fenix at one point pulled off a head scissors for a 2-count roll up at the start of the match. And just before that, after some collar and tie wrestling, they both ended up with a double kip up. Now, this was actually quite impressive because I can't do a kip up. Me trying to do a kip up looks like Rikishi trying to do the worm. And we are not going down that route. And we are definitely not adding that as short form content in the future. But these guys were all over the place. It was very, very fast paced, and I didn't know where to look really. I had at one point that Nathan Fraser pulled a head scissors on Ray Phoenix to put him, to the outside. So he pulled the head scissors off. Ray Phoenix rolled to the outside for a little bit of space, and then Nathan Fraser came running out with a suicide dive. At which point we get Ray Phoenix he's the first one to pull himself up, gets back onto the apron, and we see a corkscrew crossbody onto Nathan Fraser. Now, I don't know if it is just the luchador way or if the corkscrew seems like modification to some of these moves makes it just a little bit better, but there is a few different ones where there is corkscrew elements. For example, Nathan Fraser superplexed Ray Phoenix off the top rope and then hit a corkscrew neck breaker for a 2 count. Now, that could be described as a corkscrew neck breaker, or it could have been looked at as a diamond cutter or a corkscrew diamond cutter, but either way, it was pretty nice. Nathan Fraser mixed a Phoenix splash and a rather big knee, resulting in Ray Phoenix hitting him with a drop kick and then a goodbye amigo kick, followed up with a fire driver DDT for the 2 count. I noticed this was quite a lot of intense, high action with a lot of near falls in this. So Ray Phoenix then does another kip up with a super kick, and then pulls off what is referred to as an MMB for the 3 count for Ray Phoenix to win his debut match in SmackDown, which we could see coming. They weren't going to bring someone of Ray Phoenix's caliber into SmackDown and not give him a win in his first match, especially against someone like Nathan Fraser. But this does not hurt Nathan Fraser at all. Like I said, he's one half of Fraxium, which is the current NXT tag team or tag title holders. And this actually did an awful lot for Nathan Fraser within this match, because he's shown that he can come up to the main roster and he can get on and have a decent match with basically one of the best in the industry at this point when it comes to tag team wrestling. If you take out sort of the Hardy Boys and some of the older, more vintage tag teams that are still going, when Ray Phoenix and Penta were the Lucha Brothers, and that is something we could possibly see in the next sort of couple of months. I know they are on separate brands at the moment, but you never know what is going to happen. Like I said off podcast with Adam the other day, I personally think that if we end up with Penta with the Intercontinental title, which he's currently sort of in the running for that over on Raw, and we get Ray Phoenix with a hit at the United States Championship at some point. Now, I believe, what I'd like to say, in time for sort of like Survivor Games, I think we could have Ray Phoenix versus Penta at Survivor Games, both of them holding mid-card titles would be really, really nice. After this match, Byron Saxton jumps into the ring with Ray Phoenix to ask how he feels about his WWE debut. Ray Phoenix says that he's had a lot of history in Chicago, but tonight isn't just the debut of Ray Phoenix, it's a rebirth. And he's been reborn with more passion, and he is now a WWE amigo. Which was, we've been waiting weeks for this Ray Phoenix debut. We got it, and personally, I'm not mad at it at all. Just to finish off with this section on Ray Phoenix, we jump backstage where we see Legado del Fantasma backstage with basically Santos Escobar telling the other members of Los Garza that that's the sort of performance he expects from both of them going into the future. And one of the gentlemen from Los Garza says, "Yeah, that's not a problem. Actually, you know what? I reckon I could give Ray Phoenix a kicking on my own." And Santos Escobar goes, "Well, you know what, mate? I'm going to go and talk to Nick Aldis and see if we can get Ray Phoenix versus Alberto." So we have a possible match next week for Rey Fenix against one half of Los Garza, which will definitely be an interesting opportunity for that one. So, our next little section of SmackDown this week was a VT with our favourite Scottish warrior, Mr. Drew McIntyre. Drew, in this this little clip, is wearing an eye patch. This is because last week Damian Priest put him through the windscreen of a BMW in the back of the O2 Arena in London on the final night of their WWE European tour. And he's basically coming out to cry again about Damian Priest, and it's pretty much like, look, every time I do something, you're there to try and see what scraps you can feed off. You know, he says that Damian stole both of his title opportunities to get to, to get a title at WrestleMania. Damian Priest eliminated him from the Elimination Chamber. He also threw him over the top rope at Royal Rumble. And Drew basically says, instead of facing me like a man, you attacked me in the dark. And he then states that, it's now time for Drew McIntyre to start praying. And when Drew McIntyre prays, bad things happen. Now, this is definitely building up to what is going to be a hell of a match at WrestleMania, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Damian Priest do one over Drew McIntyre. Coming up next, we had a recap of Braun Strowman's US title match last week against LA Knight. LA Knight obviously being the current US title holder, which he took from Shinsuke Nakamura not too long ago. And in this specific match, we had an interference from Jacob Fatu. And he basically attacked Braun Strowman on the outside with a vicious flying elbow, and then took it into the ring to carry on. If you have not seen that match, you can jump in on our last episode of Finishes and Factions Does SmackDown and catch up with that one. It was a hell of a match, I will give you that. We then go to a little backstage section with Byron Saxton making another appearance. Byron Saxton gets his money this week, ladies and gentlemen. Byron Saxton is making that dollar. He's busy talking to Braun Strowman about Jacob Fatu and, why tonight we're going to see why he's such a monster in his last man standing match against Jacob Fatu, which I believe is basically our main event of the evening. It is the last match of the evening, that last man standing match. So we are going to get a little bit of what we can from both of these guys in the build up to it, which is always a bonus, to be fair. So at this point, just after Byron Saxton wanders off, you see Solo Sikoa come out and say that Braun Strowman is basically finished and he still has to face Jacob Fatu, when LA Knight makes his way in, coming on basically comes in and says that he's going to, they've got to keep an eye on these cross-eyed half-wits when Braun Strowman has his match against Jacob Fatu. And, it basically kind of, and Solo Sikoa says to LA Knight that LA Knight's got some pretty big balls talking to him like that, and I haven't quite written down what LA Knight said, but there was definitely some cojones being mentioned in this point, and LA Knight basically turns around and says, I've got gargantuan bollocks, mate. Massive bollocks, and there is nothing you or Tama Tonga are going to be able to do with them, and Tama, you better be ready because you've got an ass kicking coming your way, as he makes his way through Gorilla for his match against, for the next match of the evening, which is LA Knight versus Tama Tonga. This is only Tama Tonga's 5th singles match while he's been in SmackDown. We have seen an awful lot of Tama Tonga pushing through with there's backup for Jacob Fatu, backup for Solo Sikoa, backup for the Bloodline. We haven't really seen a lot of him in a singles competition, and I definitely don't think we have seen him in singles competition for a long time. I can't think off the top of my head his last singles match at all, to be fair. But then it is going to be one of those that he wasn't brought in really to be a solo wrestler. He was brought in to be part of a stable, especially with his tag team partner injured. Tonga Loa is currently out, and we've not really heard much about Tonga Loa for a while. So that's kind of where Tama Tonga has ended up, kind of waiting for his tag team partner to come back, which is always a bonus. So within this one, at the very start of the match, we get a distraction from Solo Sikoa on LA Knight, basically just kind of throwing some words at him and gives Tama Tonga an opportunity to try and get in a cheap shot. And he does do this, and he manages to get off quite a nice elbow drop as well at the start. My notes for this match weren't overly massive. I know Adam's notes were a lot better for mine, but I think this is purely just for the fact that it's an LA Knight match, and I love watching LA Knight, as does Adam. So between the two of us, we end up getting caught short. With this one, there is always going to be sort of the threat within this match that Solo Sikoa is going to end up biting off more than he can chew, and it's going to end up in a disqualification of some kind. But this match wasn't a title match, so it doesn't make much difference on how that one goes. And with champion's advantage anyway, a disqualification would not hurt LA Knight, but it would definitely hurt Tama Tonga. So a few bits that I've got with this one. Most of my notes are mainly about LA Knight. There's a few bits in here. I've got Tama Tonga hits a rather nice back suplex and ends up getting it up for a 2 count. There's a couple of big boots, and there's a little section at one point where LA Knight is bashing Tama Tonga's head off the announce table, with a Solo Sikoa looking on very much from the side, kind of like, the fuck do you think you're doing? Towards the middle of the match, we get another distraction from Solo Sikoa, this time towards the ref, and Tama Tonga ends up sending LA Knight off onto the announce table from the apron. So LA Knight was stood on the apron, and Tama Tonga was in the ring when he kind of shoved LA Knight, who went absolutely flying. Apart from sort of like a few other bits, Tama Tonga went up onto the top turnbuckle, sat up there and tried doing LA Knight shtick, the whole LA Knight, yeah, which did not work at all. And as he ended up jumping down to pull the elbow drop, he missed because LA Knight had fucked off out of there. To which LA Knight then counters that with a jumping neckbreaker, a power slam, and then the BFT for the 3 count after Solo Sikoa tried to spike him from the outside. He basically, he had to avoid Solo to hit this BFT, and Solo's a big motherfucker. Avoiding him is never going to be too easy to do, which is, fair play to him. I don't think I could have moved that quickly. But it is one of them, and it is kind of how it goes. So LA Knight manages to pick up this win against Tama Tonga. I don't think this really did much for either wrestler, to be fair. LA Knight is another win under his belt on his road to WrestleMania, where he is going to be defending his US title against, at this precise moment, I can't remember who is in the running for it. I've got a feeling it's Jacob Fatu that is currently the number 1 contender for the US title. But I could be wrong, and I'm sure I might be. So if I am, and you guys can tell me who is the current number 1 contender for the United States title, drop me an email. It's finishersandfactions@gmail.com. Both myself and Adam do our best to get into the emails as often as we can and reply to them as and when we can. And returning with the next section, we see Byron Saxton again. This guy is definitely getting his appearances in this week. He is trying to talk to Paul Heyman backstage about the favour. And basically Paul Heyman says no matter what the favour is, his answer is yes. And you can tell him that the answer is yes, and basically he just needs to get out of trouble with Roman Reigns. So it's kind of insinuating. Well, I've watched this, so I know what's going on. Looking back at this, you can see from the very start of this episode where this is building up to, and it is quite an interesting way they've gone through it, and you will find out more about this when we get to the very end of the episode, purely because that is where the meat and veg of this episode is, and the build up to that specific storyline. And as Paul Heyman's busy talking to Byron Saxton about this, black SUV starts pulling up, and at this point Heyman starts getting a little bit concerned. Obviously, normally when black SUVs show up, that indicates that our tribal chief is about to jump out the back of it, but it was not the tribal chief this time. It was a man who is a revolutionary. We get Mr. Seth Rollins come out, and he basically is like, oh, were you expecting someone else? Oh, you were looking for the other member of the Shield. Which, I mean, out of the three members of the Shield, only two of them get referenced now. Poor John Moxley, or Dean Ambrose as he was known, is basically a naughty word in WWE right now. Which, I mean, I don't really understand. Moxley was well within his rights to do what he do. What he's done at AEW has been incredible. Some of it very fucking stupid, do not get me wrong, but some of the stuff he's done at AEW has been incredible. But Seth Rollins continues basically going, Paul, you don't look so good. You feeling all right? Which, I mean, Paul Heyman's shitting himself at this point, and I think I would be if I'd done something that could possibly piss off the tribal chief Roman Reigns. Talking about people that piss a lot of people off, we get our least favourite female superstar decide that she's going to make an entrance to the ring. Charlotte Flair comes out. This week we basically, we know there is going to be a little bit of a promo between these two women, and God forbid after last time they had a slanging match on air, it didn't go too well. There's been ass kickings galore on air as well, and there is definitely no love lost between these two women. But once Charlotte Flair makes her way to the ring, we get an Aleister Black vignette. So Aleister Black has confirmed that he is coming back to WWE. There hasn't been a date confirmed for his debut, but within this, a lot of people and a lot of fans have spotted certain things in these vignettes. Certainly, some of it has been a selection of numbers. The number 4 has been played around with, and so is the number 25. A lot of US fans are kind of hoping this means that his debut will be on the 25th of April, which is the week after WrestleMania. So we could get, after WrestleMania, a very interesting debut. Well, it's not even a debut, it's more of a return. Aleister Black is a former WWE wrestler that went to AEW and has decided that he is coming back. And if that is true, then it will be on the Dickies Arena, Fort Worth, Texas. So that could be an interesting night in Texas, especially after the prospect of a fantastic WrestleMania in Las Vegas the weekend beforehand. So after we have the Aleister Black vignette, we get some Tiffy time. Tiffy Stratton walks out to the ring, and I will tell you something. I think both Tiffy and Charlotte have been shopping in the same place because they were both wearing the same pair of trousers. Charlotte finished hers off with a black corset, while Tiffy just went, I'm guessing, with what was supposed to go with it anyway. Charlotte did not look happy at this at all. And because of the tension between those two women, we have, well, I'd like to say he's a local wrestler. He's not local to the Americans. He's a little bit local to me. We're from the same country, we're just different ends of it. We have the former bare knuckle boxer and former WWE superstar Wade Barrett moderating this interview to make sure that these women keep it above board and no low blows, no low shots, and no fucking fighting. If Tommy Shelby was there, those would be the two words, the phrase he'd be using. No fucking fighting. I mean, we get a little bit of the crowd really are not a fan of Charlotte in this place, and every time she goes to open her mouth, she gets booed pretty goddamn hard. But between the two of them, they did manage to get some interesting points out. Now, Wade Barrett asks one question in this section, and it's basically to Charlotte, to be fair. It was like he asked Charlotte why she chose Tiffy Stratton for her champion of choice after she won the Royal Rumble, and after the recent interactions between the two of them, was it the best choice? Now, Charlotte Flair says that Tiffy Stratton was begging for some attention, and Charlotte is just the gift that keeps on giving. And to be fair, she does say afterwards she hasn't done any charity work recently, which I thought was fucking hilarious. But that was just the start of the spitting of feathers between these two women. I'm pretty sure if Wade Barrett hadn't been in the middle of them, a punch would have been thrown. And these women, it would not have been a fake punch either. They would have been beating each other for real. I am pretty sure of that. So basically, Charlotte Flair says that, she wanted to show the smartest WWE fans in Chicago there really just isn't a comparison between her and Tiffy. And at which point Tiffy asks, where's the woo? We've heard everything else you've got to say. Give us the woo that you stole off your daddy. And a lot of Tiffy's points to Charlotte are literally just like, you're just trying to be your dad, Norton 3 in your marriage, just in marriages, just like your dad. Well, that wasn't her exact words. That's not a quote. That is pretty much, that would have been in her mind, I'm guessing. So yeah, Tiffy Stratton basically says that after WrestleMania, when she retains the title against Charlotte, that Charlotte is going to be just like she is, outside of wrestling. She can be all on her own. She then goes into the little bit where she brings up about Charlotte's recent divorce from Andrade, saying that in marriages, she's Norton 3, at which point she gets a pretty ruthless comment to her, is the fact that Charlotte Flair turns on and goes, I might be alone at the moment, but are you aware that your boyfriend has been in my DMs? So, Ludwig Kaiser has got to be the only bloke in the world who's been accused of cheating, and the whole world's gone, fuck off, he didn't do it, that's a lie. Bullshit. Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in a happy relationship with Tiffany Stratton, are you going to throw that away for an opportunity to slide up into Charlotte Flair's DMs? As a man, personally, I sure as fucking 20 years ago or now. But then that's the difference between these two women. Charlotte's like, she's in her early 40s, just for the sake of saying it. But we've then got to remember that Tiffy Stratton's only 25, and she is the current SmackDown's women title holder, when Charlotte Flair was only 25, she was still trying to be a volleyball player drinking in daddy's basement. So, yeah, definitely some big differences between those two. There is a little bit where Charlotte Flair's just taking a piss out of how Tiffy's so squeaky. And, I mean, we've heard the Nepo baby reference a few times the last few weeks. So it is one of those that there wasn't really much extra to this that I could give you apart from the big bits, which is, yes, Tiffany Stratton having a pop at Charlotte Flair's 0-3 for her marriages, and yeah, Charlotte Flair trying to make Tiffy feel a little bit bad by making her think that Ludwig Kaiser's up in her DMs when we all know he's not. If he has been, that is going to be the biggest shock in the world, and I personally, I'd want to see the proof of what he was saying beforehand. I'd be like, yeah, he may have been in your DMs, but there's a big difference going, can I have an autograph and can I fuck you? Do you know what I mean? But we will leave that one because we then get a little bit of news from Nick Aldis backstage talking about some cross-brand work that's going to be going on. So SmackDown and Raw are going to be combining their women's tag divisions for a women's tag team gauntlet match. And the winners of this tournament will be facing Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the women's tag titles at WrestleMania. And there's going to be some good matches in this gauntlet tournament. I haven't seen any of the teams that have been put in there yet, but I'm sure at some point we're going to find out a little bit more about this. I'm guessing probably Monday night on Raw we will get the first match, and we can find out all about that in the next episode of Finishers and Factions does Monday Night Raw. Our next match of the evening is a number one contenders match for the tag team titles. We're between Motor City Machine Guns, which is Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, versus DIY, the team of Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. This is the gentleman that R-Truth thinks is Triple H, which I thought was brilliant. For this match, Street Profits they came out first with their titles to watch the match. Now, I presumed they were going to be sitting in their normal bitch seats next to commentary, but these two decided that wasn't for them. They're not bitches. They are the tag team title holders, and they're going to go and sit in the front row with the crowd, which was always a nice little touch. Now, a lot of this match, I'm going to put out there, was not easy to make notes on. Because I like watching Motor City Machine Guns. I think they're a fantastic tag team, and every week when I watch them I get more and more hooked on the product they're selling me. I know Adam's a massive fan of MCMG. He's watched them pretty much in most of the promotions they've been in. I know he's had a lot of fun watching them when they were in TNA. I've seen a little bit of DIY previously before Finishers and Factions started when they were in NXT, as I believe they were tag title holders there the last time I saw them wrestle. But we do get off to a nice little start with this one. It was the start of the match. There was a lot of double teams. I did find a lot of this match seemed to be sort of like 2-on-1 a lot of the time. But there was some pretty nice bits in the match that we're going to go through. Some of the bigger spots where Johnny Gargano hit a slingshot spear. Now, I'm not massively knowledgeable about Johnny Gargano's sort of move set and the sort of the things that he does a lot of, but that spear was nicely done, and it did the damage it needed to do. Chris Shelley manages... now, don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of use what is in your environment to your benefit. At no point did I think Chris Shelley would run up the front of Tommaso Ciampa to hit a tornado DDT on Johnny Gargano, while Alex Shelley suicide dives onto the outside, taking out DIY, who were... they were just getting to their feet at this point after the tornado DDT, and the fact that somebody ran up the front of you, I thought was quite an incredible little move. It's just one of those quirky little things that you see in a pro wrestling ring that you get away with that you probably would not see at the UFC. I don't think you'd see anyone running up the side of the cage to perform a DDT on someone in a cage, but that, it can be done. There was a little bit of a to and fro in. Motor City Machine Guns were trying to set themselves up for the Skull and Crossbones on a few different attempts, with Johnny Gargano doing a great job of playing defense and making sure those didn't happen, while his teammate Tommaso Ciampa was taking on the guys in the ring. At one point during the setup for a Skull and Bones, the top turnbuckle gets exposed when one of the guys from Motor City Machine Guns kind of grabs hold of it, trying to steady themselves as Johnny Gargano tries to tip them off over the outside, which will come to play a little bit later in this match, but for now we don't see too much of it. There's some really, really interesting bits at the end here. So Alex Shelley tried to set up a faceless, which Johnny Gargano was not allowing to happen, and Johnny Gargano managed to stop a second Skull and Bones attempt, while just shortly afterwards, Tommaso Ciampa tried getting the best of the referee here, Charles Robinson, trying to use the ropes on a dirty pin. Basically he got caught on the 2 count. When he got to 2, the referee spotted it and kind of went, "No, you can't do that. That is not allowed. You cannot do that at all." And as he kind of stumbles out of this one and he's finished arguing with the ref about it, he runs towards Alex Shelley in the corner, who moves out of the way and leaves Tommaso Ciampa running directly into the exposed turnbuckle. Yeah, so after running himself off that exposed turnbuckle, he basically leaves himself on his back. He domed himself pretty well with that exposed turnbuckle, letting Motor City Machine Guns get the pin for the 3 count, meaning that Motor City Machine Guns become the #1 contenders to Street Profits tag team titles, and those 2 teams will meet at WrestleMania. Which, wow, Street Profits and Motor City Machine Guns at WrestleMania. God damn! What a match that is going to be. On the way back up the ramp towards Gorilla in the backstage area, where I'm guessing Motor City Machine Guns are off for a cold beer and a hot shower, they walk past Street Profits and who are sat in the crowd and say, "Look, we're coming for those titles. Those are coming back to us." Obviously, Motor City Machine Guns have already held those tag titles. We've seen DIY also hold those tag titles up until very recently, where they lost to Street Profits to drop those titles over. This tag division is strong. Okay, and it there's no other way of saying it. The SmackDown tag division is incredibly strong, and we don't even get to see half of them. Bearing in mind, we haven't seen Wyatt 6 yet, or we haven't. There's a few people we've not seen, and it's only going to get stronger, this tag division. Talking about SmackDown's tag team division, though, we do see a couple more of them backstage now. We get to see The Miz and Carmelo Hayes, commonly known as Mello Don't Miz, backstage talking about some opportunities when they see... we also get to see Pretty Deadly backstage as well. Basically, Miz and Mello are taking the piss out of the fact that Pretty Deadly, who managed to have a title match opportunity in their hometown, no, their home country, sorry, of London last week. Well, London, England, they had a match last week. And basically, they Mallow accuses them of fumbling at the 1 yard line and kind of says, what are you, Chicago Bears? For those of you who are not NFL fans, the Chicago Bears are known for fumbling the ball and at the 1 yard line and basically just making some pretty basic mistakes. In fact, the last time the Chicago Bears did anything half decent, they won the Super Bowl in 1985, beating the New England Patriots. Being a Patriots fan, currently sat here wearing a Patriots shirt while recording this, one of my friends is a Bears fan, and he does like to remind me of that every time we get to the start of the football season. But we do get Pretty Deadly have a comeback to Mellow Don't Miss's jokes about their opportunities by going, hey, we got some jokes. I mean, look at the Marine 3, the Marine 4, and Marine 5, which were all basically just cheap. Well, I'm going to say cheap. They were not very cheap to make, but they were movies made to try and give Miz a little bit more over with the crowd, and quite frankly, it did not work. Those series of movies are incredibly poor, and I actually think the last 3 of them went straight to DVD rather than actually making it into the cinema. But Miz does try and get his comeuppance again. He asked how Pretty Deadly's musical's going. Pretty Deadly getting back, really, by saying that he is the Leonardo DiCaprio of tag team wrestling. Which, yes, this guy is a 9 times tag champion, but each time he's won a title, it's been with a different wrestler as his tag partner. And this time, he's got Carmelo Hayes, and they're asking him, well, why have you been? What have you done to get relegated back down to the bottom? Which is basically finished off by Pretty Deadly telling them they're not really a tag team and that they could beat them on their worst day, which is a bit of a disrespectful thing to put in there. But the disrespect continues as we go into our next match between B-Fab and Naomi. This one is I'd say it's a little bit of a grudge match. This match came along because B-Fab and Mishin were siding with Jade Cargill a fortnight ago after, obviously, it all came out. Naomi was the one who put Jade Cargill in the hospital, giving her one massive ass kicking. Last week, Mishin went one-on-one with Naomi, which Naomi won. You can hear our coverage of that match in our last episode of Finishers and Factions Does SmackDown. And then, we get B-Fab come out with Mishin. Mishin decided, now you've got to have a really close eye on this, but as B-Fab is walking down the ramp to the ring, we see Mishin disappear back through the curtain, back into Gorilla to go and sort something else out, I'm guessing. But she was not ringside with B-Fab, but she did kind of make a slight appearance with her at the top of the entry ramp. As Naomi starts making her way down the ramp, though, we get a well, this isn't a surprise, to be fair. We were told by Jade Cargill that whenever she saw her, it would be on site, and on site it was, as Jade Cargill attacked Naomi on the entrance ramp, and the security guys that followed her out were doing a reasonable job of trying to keep her kind of contained, but they could have done a better job. Jade Cargill, though, is an absolute animal, and it was definitely one of those. So after the slight beatdown that Naomi took from Jade Cargill on the entrance ramp, Naomi kind of runs off down to the ring to try and see if she can escape. And as soon as she hits the ring, the bell goes and B-Fab is on top of her pretty hard. And basically just grabs her by the hair and drags her down and starts giving her a big beating, and there's a big kick and a super kick in there at some point for a 2 count. And she just starts teeing off again. Like, there is a lot of pent up rage from B-Fab here, and she feels Naomi's weakened because of what Jade Cargill did to her on the entrance ramp as well. I mean, and to be fair, if Jade Cargill had given me a beatdown on the entrance ramp, the last thing I'd want to be doing is going into a match with B-Fab. But in the end, after as much of an effort as B-Fab puts in, and she's in control for, I'm going to say about 95% of this match, it is all B-Fab. We get to see something new from Naomi. So we are told, and I couldn't tell you it was new. The only reason that I know it's new is because the announce team told us it was. Naomi hit something called a modified lung blower to be able to get the 3 count on B-Fab this week. And basically, the only way I can describe it to you is... I'm just trying to think of the name of the move now. It's a code breaker to the front rather than a code to the back. But yeah, it looked like it hurt. It was definitely an effective move for a finisher move. And it was something new from Naomi, along with sort of like the new ring attire, the new entrance, which has all been pretty cool. Obviously, we can't be feeling the glow right now after she's come out and basically admitted to beating Jade Cargill. That's not a very face move. So we've now got the full deep darkened package to go with it as well, which is always a bonus. But sometimes when these guys change from one to the other, face to heel, heel to face, we don't always get a change in the character, but we definitely did get it this time. At this point, at the end of the match, Naomi's in the ring still. She's got a mic in her hand, and she's like, "Jade Cargill, where you at, bitch?" And Jade Cargill was already waiting for her. She was hiding in the crowd, and she comes flying out and hits a massive big boot and looks to set up her finisher. I can't tell you what it is, but I can describe it to you. If you look at a pedigree where they hook the arms, above them from the front, it's basically like a pedigree from the back and then into a sit-down sort of face drop. It's beautiful to watch. I really should find the name of it out, but it is amazing. At this point, security come down and break these two up, and Jade Cargill does not look happy about that, and she basically just starts whipping the security around and dumping them out of the ring. And then sort of Naomi at this point is kind of sat on the entrance ramp watching the carnage when Nick Aldis comes out through the Titran to say, "Look, I'm fed up of this, and there's only one solution to what is going on here. So both of you two ladies, that is both Naomi and Jade Cargill, are going to be going one-on-one at WrestleMania." And both of these women look incredibly happy with that announcement. Like, these women wanted an opportunity to beat fuck out of each other, and they're going to be doing that on the grandest stage of them all. I mean, that this in theory has the option to be a really good match, but it's definitely one of the ones at WrestleMania that I think is going to be a starting, like, within the first sort of 2 matches on probably the first day, to be fair. Be one of the first matches I think we get to see, purely for not just to get it over and done with, but the rest of the matches that are coming through seem a lot bigger and a lot better than what Naomi and Jade Cargill are going to be able to throw around for us. So the next section of this week's episode was a Damian Priest VT replying basically to the Drew McIntyre one we had earlier, and saying that it wasn't me that cost you these things. It was your obsession with Punk that cost you, your own title, and you basically keep screwing yourself. Clash of the Castle, it should have been all about sort of Priest and McIntyre, but McIntyre was so obsessed with CM Punk still, and Priest just did his job. At Money in the Bank, stopped him from his baggage, stopped him from cashing in. Same with Royal Rumble where he was eliminated by Damian Priest, the Elimination Chamber where he was taken out by Damian Priest. You know, he got him really easily. And then when Drew McIntyre attacked him, cost him his WrestleMania title shot, Damian Priest says that Drew McIntyre is a hypocrite and he's a junkie getting high off playing cheap jokes and being a victim. And now Damian Priest is going to make him a victim at WrestleMania, which I'm not entirely sure what I feel about that. I'm glad someone's stepping up to shut up Drew McIntyre, but is the eyeliner wearing Timu version of Undertaker going to be the guy to do it? I'm not sure. I mean, we both know what these guys can do. They've been in war a few times, but I'll be intrigued to see how this one goes down. Talking about wars, though, we get an in-ring promo from Nick Aldis. Now, we don't see much of Nick Aldis in the ring as it is very much. It's normally coming out just to do a sort of officiating and things. But this time he says he's out here to do a part of his job that he really doesn't like doing. And, you know, within the industry that they're in, there is a fine line between being able to come back next week and finding out that you may never wrestle again. He goes, I know it is a massive cliche, but there is a huge reason and a very big reason we tell you, do not try this at home. And the one person that can give you a better reason than that is Kevin Owens. We get a very subdued Kevin Owens walking down to the ring, which is unusual for us anyway. We don't see subdued Kevin Owens at all, even when he's just had his ass handed to him. He's normally still pretty quick on his feet and still trying to cause trouble and make a mess for himself. At which point Kevin comes out and he says, you know, he's been doing this business for 25 years, and you know, in the 25 years he's been doing it, every time he gets in the ring, he's given that everything he has on that specific night. He said, yes, some nights, not as much as others, but I've given it everything I've had to give at that point. And the industry has given him an absolutely phenomenal lifestyle. You know, he's had a great life with it. His family have had amazing things, and he's done really well within it. But eventually, in professional wrestling, there is a price you have to pay, and the toll it takes on your body is a very, very big thing. And he says that for the last 4 or 5 months, he's been dealing with quite a serious neck injury, but they didn't realize how serious it was until this week. Now, if you take it as 4 months that he's had this injury, that'd be roughly the same time that we have been running finishers and factions. Look at the matches we've seen this guy take part in. You know, you had the unsanctioned match at Elimination Chamber with Sami Zayn. If you weren't aware of that one, we have our coverage of it for the Elimination Chamber episode. You had that incredible match with Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble for the real title, so to speak, between the Winged Eagle Championship and the actual championship that is floating around. And and those two matches just on their own have been incredible. So if he's done those with a neck injury that could potentially put him out of his career, then fair play to the guy. Like, he really has given it everything he's got. And he says that he needs to go and have neck surgery. And the timing of this is really shit, because no matter how this is going, he was really looking forward to sharing a ring with Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And he can't do that now, and he's thankful for the WWE for allowing him to come into the ring and have 5 minutes with the crowd to have a conversation, because it's maybe something he doesn't get to do again. And he has learned that after everything, he will never take this industry for granted, because I suppose if you wake up every day going, yeah, I'm fine, and then you wake up going, shit, I'm not fine. That's especially if you've been doing something like that for 25 years, man. Like, that's a long time. Kevin Owens has been wrestling since I was 9 years of age. That's incredible. Um, at which point we find I'll say that he's not going to be wrestling at WrestleMania, and Randy Orton's music hits, and we kind of Randy comes out and walks again quite somberly down to the ring, and the two of them share a moment on the apron where Kevin's coming out of the ring, Randy's getting into it, and they kind of give each other a look that kind of says, "Fair play, man. Like, I hope you're good." And backstage they would have probably shaken hands and had a conversation and whatnot, and kind of hugged it out. You know what it's like, the man thing to do, so to speak. But we get a little conversation between Nick Aldis and Randy Orton in the ring. This is basically just Nick Aldis affirming with Randy that he no longer has a WrestleMania opponent, so therefore he does not have a WrestleMania match. Now, a lot of people will have probably seen in the few days since SmackDown aired, and we've got round to recording this, that there's been quite a few clips and memes made of this next bit, and that is basically because I believe it was 2 years ago, might be slightly longer. Randy Orton was fined $50,000 for hitting an RKO on Nick Aldis in the ring, and Randy actually gave him a check for $100,000. When Nick questioned it, he said, "That's for next time." And then, lo and behold, this man, he's definitely got a good memory and definitely a good judge of character. But then, if I'd overpaid something by $50,000, I think I'd remember it too. He got his receipt for that extra little bit on the check, because Randy Orton hit an RKO on Nick Aldis in the middle of the ring, leaves Nick lying there and just strolls off casually, like, "Yep, I'm listening to those voices." And I'll tell you something, fair play to the guy. It's not very often you can get away with RKOing your boss once, but twice. So we definitely find out that Randy Orton's got some gargantuan sized kahunas here. As he pops that RKO and leaves it where it goes. And here we have it. This is our main event of the evening. So, as we were notified earlier on, we have a last man standing match between Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu, and this, I believe, is for the number one contender for the United States title, which LA Knight currently holds. So, with a last man standing match, the rules are slightly different. There are no pinfalls, there are no submissions. The only way you can win a last man standing match is to beat your opponent that badly they cannot stand for a 10 count. So basically, there are no rules within this match apart from beat the guy that badly he can't stand up for 10 seconds. Like, as long as the referee can count from 1 to 10, the man is done. And between these two absolute monsters, between Braun Strowman, the big SOB, and the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu, we know we're going to get some serious beatings laid out in this one. And it starts very, very early on. Jacob Fatu is the first one to come down to the ring. When Braun Strowman makes his entrance, Fatu decides, "I'm not waiting," and runs towards him. They meet at the ramp, and Braun Strowman throws Fatu square into the steel steps on the left-hand side. Going into this match, Braun Strowman has never lost a last man standing match, and he has had quite a few of them. I know for a fact that he has had 2 Monday Night Raw episodes and 1 at pay-per-view. I believe the pay-per-view one was Extreme Rules 2019 where he defeated Bobby Lashley, and then he had one on Monday Night Raw where he beat Kane in 2018, and then in 2017 we had another one where Braun Strowman defeated Roman Reigns. Actually, I've just fact checked myself because on the 2nd of January 2017, he defeated Sami Zayn in a last man standing match too. So there we go. Going into this, Braun Strowman is 4-0 in last man standing matches, which is an incredible feat on its own, to be fair, because I say they're both of these men are known for dealing out an awful lot of damage, and they're both known for being able to receive a fair chunk of it as well. They've dealt enough of it to each other over the last few weeks. This one started, like I said, at the get-go. As they were coming out, we had moonsaults, we had reverse moonsaults, we had running slams. There was, reversals here, there, and everywhere. Some of them big moves that I made note of. Braun Strowman ends up popping a pop-up powerbomb on Jacob Fatu, which was really, really quite nice. After he'd done that with the aftermath, he went on to the outside of the ring, grabbed himself a table from underneath the ring and set it up in the corner. Now, it looked as though he was going to try and put Fatu through the table. That's not how he decided that he was going to do this. The table doesn't actually come into play until a lot later in the match, where we see Braun Strowman get put through it. But before that, they were out on the outside of the ring beating each other down. And there was a point where Braun Strowman ran at Jacob Fatu. Fatu pulled the ropes down to send Strowman to the outside and then popped a suicide dive through the second and third rope to take him out. Runs him into the ring post at one point. We get a steel chair introduced with where basically Braun Strowman just hits Fatu in the face with it on the outside. Fatu ran at him and Strowman just popped it square in between his eyes. I didn't even see he was holding it to start off with. It just, all you heard was a doing as that piece of metal bounced off the Samoan werewolf's forehead. And he dropped like a sack, and you kind of expect it, to be fair. If someone hit me in the head with a steel chair, I'd go down pretty fucking quickly too. As Fatu is recovering from that chair shot, we see Braun Strowman go for a sprint around the ring. The Strowman Express heats up, and as Jacob Fatu turns round, Braun Strowman just dumps him straight through the barricades into timekeeping. At which point the referee in the ring is counting up to 9 when both men finally manage to get to their feet. We then cut for a commercial to find them, when they get back, we see them fighting in the production area, just off the side of the ring where there's some water coolers and a few tables and stuff that had been laid around. Braun Strowman manages to suplex Jacob Fatu off the top of some of these, equipment cases straight through the production tables. And again, both men struggle to get back up in time for the 10 count. Both of them actually getting to their feet when the referee calls 9. And then they make their way back into the ring area and back into the ring. And the camera is concentrating an awful lot on Braun Strowman getting back into the ring. Like, this guy is struggling. He's limping physically. Like, he must be getting close to being done. And as he crawls into the ring just by the table, we see Jacob Fatu come running across with a running hip attack straight to Strowman's face, to be fair. And the aftermath of that is Strowman ends up going through the table along with Fatu, and both of them are just lying in a broken heap on the floor as the referee starts counting. And at 9, Fatu manages to get to his feet, but Strowman does not get to his feet at all. He does try, but doesn't get there. And gets counted out. So Jacob Fatu wins this match. He beats Braun Strowman and breaks his record in last man standing matches and aligns himself as the #1 contender for LA Knight's US title, which I'm guessing that match at Mania is going to be incredible. I'm not sure I see LA Knight holding on to his title at Mania in this match, but it's going to be an interesting match. Let's just hope it's as good in the ring as it is on paper, because that's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And as we make our way into the final segment of this week's SmackDown, we get a recap of sort of Cody Rhodes and John Cena from Raw and everything that happened there, and then we get another backstage bit with Paul Heyman and Byron Saxton. Saxton has definitely made his money this week, asking, when the tribal chief Roman Reigns is going to arrive, and Paul Heyman says, look, he's going to be here any minute now. And when Roman gets there, he gets out of the SUV and he walks straight past Paul Heyman, ignores him completely, walks straight through to the ring. There's no pyro with his entrance, which is unusual, because normally when Roman's entrance pops, there is a lot of fire. This time there was just his entry music and a stomping, and he had a march on him today. It was definitely one of those things where he was pissed, and he really looked like he wanted to be there, but realizing he had to be there, he's been dragged away from the training camp that Paul Heyman told us he was in. He's annoyed. And when he gets to the ring, he holds his hand out like microphone, and it starts off with the standard, Chicago, acknowledge me. And Roman asks Paul Heyman, is he here? And Paul Heyman says, yeah, he's here. To which Roman responds, is he still talking about the favor? And Paul Heyman's like, yeah, pretty much. And Roman then turns around to say, CM Punk wouldn't be back in the WWE if it wasn't for him. Punk wouldn't be in the main event of WrestleMania if it wasn't for him. He said that Punk has wrestled everyone under the sun. Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, different promotions. He's wrestled a lot of places. Obviously, we know before his WWE run last time, he was in Ring of Honor. He worked a lot in the Indies. He's been in AEW. Not that he discusses AEW stuff very much, I don't think, but he's wrestled a lot of big names. But he's never been in the main event of WrestleMania until the tribal chief introduced him to the main event. And Roman says that he's, I'm standing here, but where's Punk? At which point, we're waiting for Punk to come out. We don't get Punk straight away. We get the visionary, the revolutionary Seth Rollins. Music hits, and he comes out basically saying, I ain't missing this shit for the world. Said, I don't know what the favor is, but whatever it is, it's going to knock your socks off. And Roman, you don't like living in the real world, but, when you do come out of, reality tends to bite you in the ass. He then quotes 2 examples, the heist of the century, and being example A and example B was WrestleMania last year. Obviously, Seth Rollins helped Cody Rhodes beat Roman Reigns. Obviously, there was quite a lot of people who made appearances in that match, including John Cena, The Rock, The Undertaker. I say Rollins was there as well, and that's plus Cody and Roman at the same time. So that was a big match, big match. I'd say you can listen to our previous episode, but unfortunately the podcast wasn't a thing this time last year. This is going to be Finishers and Factions' first WrestleMania, and both myself and Adam are going to be very excited for that one. A lot of work for us, but it's going to be definitely well worth it in the end. So we then get Seth Rollins telling Roman that he underestimated CM Punk, and Seth Rollins tried to ignore him and it didn't work, and now he's in the main event of WrestleMania. And Rollins hates the fact that Punk's in the main event at WrestleMania. I mean, Rollins has done everything he can really to try and stop Punk from getting there. They had their issues at Royal Rumble. That was sort of dealt with. And then obviously the issue at Elimination Chamber where Punk eliminated Rollins and then Rollins curb stomped Punk so Cena could pin him or submit him as he did. There's definitely some issues there. And then basically Reigns calls Punk out and Rollins just wants to hear from Punk what's going on. Where is he? So at that point we then get CM Punk's music hit and he comes down to the Chicago crowd for a second time. Obviously, he did open up the show. He's closing it as well, so he's definitely going to be loving this. And it's all a little to and fro between the three of them, and basically Punk saying, what's the favour? This is about friendship and legacy and promises made and promises kept and loyalty. Now, why he says the word loyalty, he's busy trying to stare Seth Rollins out, which, yes, Seth Rollins is not known for his loyal actions, especially from when he was a member of the Shield. CM Punk tells Roman Reigns that Paul Heyman prophesied what was happening 10 years ago. Actually, I think it was longer than that. I think it was 12 years ago, where Paul Heyman told CM Punk that one day he would be in the main event at WrestleMania. And it has happened. Talk about when CM Punk, Big Show, RVD, and Paul Heyman were having a conversation when Paul Heyman was leaving. I think, and Punk was saying, you can't leave. They're gonna fire me. And Paul Heyman said that he'd be fine, and it's all kind of worked out for him. But Punk asks Heyman what he can do for him, and Heyman says when he main events WrestleMania that he's going to force them to deal with us, and they aren't, he was going to have to be forced to dealing with Vince McMahon, but Vince isn't here anymore. So instead he's going to force Roman out of his comfort zone, and it's going to be an interesting one, because the WrestleMania main event in CM Punk's corner will be Paul Heyman. The wise man basically told Roman Reigns that, Punk told Roman that the wise man was going to be in his corner, and Roman looks at Paul really confused, and Seth is leaning against the ring ropes at this point, absolutely pissing himself. Like Roman's annoyed, and Seth knew that this was going to knock Roman's socks off. He said it earlier, and this has really dropped him for six, because he does not know what to do or say at this point. And Roman kind of looks at him and laughs, and then says to Paul that, I saved you. You need me. And Roman said that, even if he would let the wise man do it, the wise man wouldn't do it. And kind of asked him, come on, wise man, let this fall down easy. And Paul doesn't say much. Roman's looking even more confused at this point. And he's like, come on, let it down easy. And we get that look, and Paul Heyman starts crying. Roman kind of says to him, are you crying? He says, like, wipe him up. Tell him no. Come on, and Roman's getting more and more agitated at this point. Like, come on. He says, look, I'm going to give you one last chance to tell him no. At which point, Paul Heyman breaks down a little bit more and says, I can't do that. And as Roman sort of pushes him back towards the corner, kind of like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? CM Punk attacks Roman from behind and drops him with a go to sleep. At which point we get Punk staring at Rollins. Rollins is staring back, and Punk's like, come on. We can do this. Like, he's not a problem now. We can do this. And Rollins is very much like, you know what? I'm not interested in this mess. This business is not something I want to do right now. We've got a time for our match, and I'm going to slide out through these ropes, and I'm going to wait until WrestleMania because, well, it was the end of the show. And that leaves me at the end of my notes for this one as well. So thank you all for listening. It has been a very pleasant episode to talk to you guys about, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to it too. So I will catch up with you in the next episode, which will be Finishers and Factions does Monday Night Raw, coming very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace out.